All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Deep End. This is number 12. We are a dozen in, and this is a very special episode because this is our first time coming to you guys after we hit the coveted 1,000 subscriber mark here on the channel. So before we go any further in this conversation, just thank you guys so much for all of the support and for rocking with us for these last 12 episodes now. It's been a really fun experience being able to do this with Ari. We've had just a blast doing it, and just speaking personally, feel very grateful for where we're at so far, and I know Ari does too. So thank you guys. Just want to throw that out there.
I want to jump in and just follow that up with also saying thank you to everybody. Then the moment that we crossed 1,000 subscribers, or at least that I saw that we crossed that finish line, if you will, I had texted Ryne, congratulations. And it's such an honor. I'll put it that way. It's such an honor to be on this podcast with Ryne. And I think Ryne feels the same way, to be able to share our insights and everything that we've been learning as investors with all of you, and just have this huge community of investors. And we're all rallying together in the same direction, which is hitting our financial goals, whatever those financial goals are. And to be in the seats that we sit in, I mean, it really is an honor. We are insanely grateful, and more so, very, very much so, looking forward to continuing to grow this channel with all of you so that we all hit our financial goals, hopefully very, very soon. All drop in knowledge, whether it's me and Ryne talking here on the channel, or as Ryne and I scroll through the comments, you guys are also throwing in dimes of insights. So we thank you for that too, and just look forward to that continued growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's to you, Ari. This is a fist bump for you, man, through the camera.
Bam!
Boom. Thank you for diving into the deep end with me, man. It's been a blast so far, and yeah, it's been a wild ride. So, guys, as per usual, before we started rocking and rolling, before we started recording, we were chatting, and Ari is, I think, officially a week, or almost a week. It'll be a week tomorrow into his half marathon.
7 days was today.
Oh, okay. So he's officially a week into his half marathon training program, and man, how's it going so far? We were kind of talking about it, but fill us all in. How has the training been going for you?
So, like Ron said, I mean, we were hashing this out before we hit record, and we probably should have just hit record. But the truth is, I was stuffing pasta and chicken in my face just before we jumped on. So didn't want to be rude, but also Ryne, I think, saved me from looking rude. Anyways,
No.
It has been epic. I absolutely love it. The last we were on to talk all about the marathon training and running, I had shared something that was like, I go all in, and it was like, take advantage of basically the day. It's all we have. And so obviously I have gone about the marathon training exactly as such. So I ended up, the first day I got started, I ran about 4 miles. Day 2, I ran about 5 to 6 miles. And then actually day 3, it was Shabbat. So I took a whole day off. Came up to day 4, and I had that break day, and I came out, on Sunday morning ready to go, like locked and loaded. I ran 8 miles, and then the next day I ran a solid about 9.2 miles, and then the other day I blew right past 11 miles and something change. And then today I was like, all right, you really need to maybe tone it down, work more on speed and agility. So I kept it, pretty light today, and I just ran 3 miles and something change, and did speed and agility, ab workout, the whole 9. What I'm really getting to here, though, is it's been 1 week. I'm amped, and I want to share something new that I didn't share with Ryne just yet. I live, like, you look at my schedule, it's nuts. There's not a chunk of time that's not being utilized. Personally, how I enjoy my life, which may sound crazy to some people. So when I said I'm going to run the marathon, it was like, how am I going to work in the training? And the only viable solution, Ryne, was to wake up earlier. So I was waking up at 6 a.m. and now I'm waking up at 4:40 a.m. And what I noticed was, first of all, the first day I was like, whoa, right? Like I got a full day already, and then it was like 4:40, 5 o'clock out there and running. It was nuts. Now, what happened, and this just happened, between yesterday and today. It happened twice now. I woke up at 4:40, and the first thought was like, get your butt out of bed, get your shoes on, get out the door. And it wasn't like a nice, like pleasant, like, oh, like, woo, it was like, what are you doing in bed? And it scared me. It really spooked me out of bed. And this morning it was so intense because I actually told myself yesterday that today I was going to take it easy. And I was like, I ran the 9 miles, and the day before that was 8 miles, maybe tone it down. And what happened the other day was, it was like, like I looked at the clock, 4:43, and all of a sudden, all of these thoughts came in. And these thoughts were just like, like I said, it was like vicious, like spooky. It was like, what are you doing? You're going to work on just speed and agility? Do both. Do more. You can do, like, it was and it was like, get your shoes on, get your running clothes on, and get the heck out of that door. And I flew out of bed. I was like, honestly, it was like it was just a spooky feeling. And I just started running, and then boom, I hit 11 miles. But this is all to say that I've been realizing a lot about myself on these runs. I've realized just in the past 7 days that this is not going to be something that I'm going to give up after the marathon is done. I've realized that waking up at 4:40 might sound crazy, but that's also not going to be something that I'm going to be done with. Because what I've realized, and I'm going to pass the ball over to you with this one, Ryne. I've realized that, and it's kind of like when you level up in life, you can't go back. You can't like go back down, at least for me. And so I've just opened up like a new door in my life that was like, oh, wait, you can wake up even earlier and fill that time. And it's not like I'm waking up at 4:40 now and then, I feel exhausted throughout my day. I love life. I love what I'm doing. I love everything that I'm doing. I feel like a billionaire. And I'm like, I now have, like, post-marathon, I'm going to be waking up now at 4:45 to do something. And that it will eventually be a full marathon, and it will eventually be, some other marathons, because I just foresee myself doing this now, like, long-term. But in the in-between periods, I'm not going to level back down. Who's going to, like, I'm going to wake up at 6 now? I might sound a little nuts, but again, it's like I've opened up some capacities now in my world that, like, I realized I was not even running on full jets. And now I feel like I'm running more so on full jets until something else unlocks. But what do you think about that? Is that crazy?
No, I don't think that's crazy. I think it's great that you're able to wake up early and still like sustain that. There's seasons in my life where I'll do the same thing, where I'm up at 4:30 or 5, somewhere in that range. These days I've been a little bit more like 6 a.m. But usually once it gets more to summer, I'll start kind of scaling it earlier and earlier, kind of like you're doing now. It's just easier. So no, man, I don't think that's crazy at all. And I think you've committed to doing this race, and to do this race, you have to train for it. So that's another commitment. And it just seems like this is the only way that you can do that. And, I guess when it comes to the training, you had one of two choices. You could have just winged it and not done the training and used the excuse that you don't have enough time. You're already jam-packed, throughout the day, which is what a lot of people do. One of the most common excuses for not getting into shape is I don't have time. I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to go for a jog. I don't have time. And it's understandable. People live busy lives. But I think that and this can't apply to everyone, because, there probably are some people out there who just cannot squeeze anything more in, like for the sake of their sanity, couldn't do it. And so that's understandable. But you just prove, like, well, if you don't feel like you have enough time, you have to make more time. And sometimes to make more time, you have to make some sacrifices. And that sacrifice, at least in your case, was, an hour and 20 minutes of sleep every single day. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd actually like to know how you feel about this, but do you think it's easier to wake up early and kind of just go throughout your day with the energy that you need to get things done? Do you think it's easier to do that having just getting up and going straight for a run? Because running can be pretty energizing. It can, and exercising in general can as well. If you lift in the morning or even run in the morning, typically you've got some good energy to carry you throughout the day. Have you found that in your experience so far with this stuff?
For sure. I mean, I'm going to say this. Humans were meant to wake up when the sun rises. That's our reality. And we've turned it into something else with our little blackout window curtains, and like, let me sleep all day and live the life of, whatever, some celebrity. I don't know, whatever. But we were supposed to wake up when the sun rises. That's the natural tendency for a human. And so I've noticed that when I'm waking up now really early, like way before the sun is rising, first of all, it's epic that no one's out there on the street. And it's like the world out there is mine. Like I don't see anybody. It's so peaceful. And on the other end of this, by the time I get home, like you said, the run in of itself is an energizer. So you're coming back full of energy. Physically, maybe not, but like mentally and emotionally, you're like, let's go. Like I just finished whatever, 2 miles, 5 miles, 8 miles, 10 miles, whatever. And you get home and you're not going for a coffee. I mean, maybe some people are. You're going for a water or Gatorade. Now that's fueling your day differently. And now because you just ran a bunch, now you're grabbing for a healthier snack, or not snack, a healthier breakfast rather, because you got to replenish, but also you don't want to fill your body with garbage. So your whole day starts to look a little bit different. And, when I was waking up, can't even say it's like that different for me. 6 o'clock, right? So from 6 now it's 4:40. But what I was doing then was, waking up, and I would still have my 15-minute nice little HIIT workout going on in the morning. And that fueled me. But I will admit that like I'm a huge coffee guy. Like I love the taste of coffee. Since actually running for mileage, I've like drastically reduced my coffee intake because I'm so fueled up. And then I got to replenish with water and Gatorade. And the body's just a little different now, So it's like that's just been fueling me differently.
And the thing too, man, is when you start your day with those two things, number one, waking up early, which is not easy to do. That early is so difficult. And then going out on a run, which is also not an easy thing to do. It just sets the stage for the whole rest of your day. Like you start out your day doing two very hard things. And so the rest of your day, no matter what you have going on, is probably a bit easier to bear. Oh, if I can get up at 4:40, if I can go on a 9-mile run, I can certainly handle whatever else is to come today. So I think it really sets the stage for the entire rest of your day and gets you started on the right foot, both, literally and metaphorically as well.
100%. And I was sitting with someone for lunch the other day, and he didn't know, I was running the marathon or training for it rather. And we were talking, and then he asked me a question, but I just looked at him. I was like, man, I ran 11 miles before you even opened up your eyes. And we were talking about,
he was probably complaining about something or.
Yeah. And he was like, oh, but I don't have time, this. And I was like, dude, like you got all the time in the world. Like before you even opened up your eyes today, I was on mile 11. And he was like, oh, like maybe I should shut up. Right. Like, and that's the thing. I think it's, first of all, I'm going to say this. I think it's dangerous for me to have started marathon training, Ryne. I'm going to blame you for this one. you've just unleashed a new beast into this world because, my persona and attitude before was like, I kind of like like I'm indestructible, right? Like just keep going. Like just every little brick that's laid is eventually going to compound. And like when you build like that, you're indestructible. And now that you've kind of put this notion like the marathon, there's marathon. I'm like, man, I feel like I'm just breathing new air. And with every run, like there's some sadistic thoughts coming in these, runs, because on mile 5, 7, whatever, my mind's like, just like do 13 miles today, like just keep, you don't even need to stop. The only reason I actually stop running is literally because I got a dog to walk. So I come home and my dog's still sleeping when I leave, by the way. Like she looks at me, she's like, "You're crazy, man." And then I come home and then she's up. She's ready to go. But I'll sit, I drink a water, and then I have a Gatorade and we go out for her run. And by the way, her like time outside is not like a pleasant like little walk around a park. Like she's a German Shepherd / Kanani mix. She's got energy. And so this dog needs to run and play, and I train her like a army dog. So she's by my side, she's through my legs, she's running, she's doing this, she's doing that, and I'm doing it with her. So I almost think, like I joke, I'm like, Nala's my real coach, because I come back from that run, I'm dead, but Nala's like, "Oh, but you got to take me out for an hour," and I'm like, "Oh." But I just think about that. And by the way, the other thing I said last week, which has been true, has been the fact that, and it's been a great week not to have my eyes in the market. Can we talk about that for a second? I've been so distracted with just the run. Don't get me wrong. I've been investing.
Did you pick up some more Google?
Yeah, more Google, more VGT, more VOO. I sold Realty Income. Whoops, right?
It was coming. It was coming. Yeah. You talked about it.
It was on the list. So, and all that money, man, was just put right back into high dividend growth stocks. Anyways, who cares, man? I'm down $25,000, baby. Let's go, right? And my persona, because I'm focused on a run right now. I don't have time to focus on the stock market. So I'm down 25. I want this to be like the main, like just enlarged on camera. I am down $25,000 and more than that, and I'm happy about it.
I think that's going to be the title of this video. Yeah. Something like that.
I'm down 25K.
Ari's down 25K. Why he's happy, yeah. It'll be something like that.
Man, I'm sadistic. But why am I happy? There are so many flipping opportunities out there. And in my mind, I'm running a marathon, and I'm also investing in a marathon. I'm investing in a marathon because this ain't no sprint. Like, I'm not in this to trade, day trade and trade my positions next week. I'm in this for decades. I'm going all in, man. I had to text, the CFO of the company because I invoiced. And I needed that money ASAP. I'm like, where is the money? I got to invest, But I'm going nuts, because I'm just like, there's so many opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time. And that's one way you can look at it. On the other hand, I know that there are a lot of people, probably some of you watching, who this is your first time experiencing this volatility of this magnitude in the stock market. And so if this is your first time, I understand if it feels maybe a bit daunting or a bit concerning. Maybe you're starting to get a little bit nervous about just the constant red that we're seeing in the market. And so I understand the other side of it too, but tying it back to running real quick, this is kind of like, kind of where we're at right now, where things are starting to look tough, share prices are going down. It's kind of like if you're running a half marathon, you're at mile 8, you're at mile 9, you're at mile 10, you're starting to get wary. It's starting to take its physical toll on you, but this is the time that you need to dig deep and realize, look, it's all going to be okay. in the long run things are going to be okay. I can go the extra 3-4 miles, whatever it is. I can buy right now today at these lower share prices, even though it's tough and I'm feeling nervous by it, and I'm feeling wary from all of this red. Now is the time to dig deep, dig in, and put that money to work, knowing that in the long run you will be better than you went into it. And so I think that's kind of an interesting comparison between the two. There's so many comparisons, but for those of you guys who are starting to feel a bit nervous from all of this volatility, just know this is probably the worst it's going to feel. If this is your first time, just know it won't be your last. And with each period like this that you'll experience, you get a bit more numb to it. You get a bit more used to these swings, and you'll come to just inherently understand things are going to be okay. If things are going down today, they'll be fine. Things are not perpetually broken. But anyway, man, I was going to ask you, just, I guess, switching gears a little bit. Before we started rolling, you were telling me that you recently spoke to Kai from, Smart Money with Kai. And I know you had him on Masters of the Market a while back, but I guess you guys had a recent conversation, and he's a big runner, big investor. He is like, it seems like the three of us have a lot in common. What were you guys talking about? Was it more investing? Was it running? What was that?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll say this. Very similarly, Ryne, to how you were posting each of your runs on Instagram, I started doing the same thing. Just post like consistent, like it even helps me just like, okay, I gotta show this. And Kai reached out to me because, he started liking each post. And he goes, man, another runner, basically another runner, creator and runner. And so we just started chatting. And I do have plans to go to Dubai. And I was like, man, we should run together if I come to Dubai. And he was like, for sure. So that was kind of the running part of the conversation. We spoke a bit about running. And then it led, of course, into just investing. And I said to him, like, hey, man, we should have you on the deep end chat so we can talk all about, how similar it is, this concept of marathon running and how it's just applicable, to investing, to life itself, which he'd be more than happy to jump on. So that's what we were really talking about. And, Kai is not necessarily, he's not a dividend investor, I'll put it that way. But his approach to investing, I think there's just so much that people can learn from. And like I always say, dividend investor or not, everybody has something to teach you. And so even if it's a real estate investor, even if it's a car salesman, the guy, the garbage pickup, guys, like if you are able to learn from everybody, you will go places in life. And so, when it comes to Kai, I had him on. Of course, he was not a dividend investor, but he had so much insight for investors to learn. And I just think it would be another worthwhile conversation to have him on and to talk about his experience with investing and running, in marathons and just running in general. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I can't think of really a better comparison, investing and marathon training. It's just that now that I really started training and running, there's just no greater comparison in my world. Because I'm like you shared, you're at mile 7 or 8. And it's like, well, I got only a handful more to go, right? I might as well. And that's just the way that an investor should be thinking at any given moment. I just got this paycheck and I could put it here, or I can put it to where I really want to financially be so I can cross my financial finish line. And then you take it a step further because now you get that same paycheck. And if you start to condition yourself, which happens in running, right? Day 1, I ran about 4 miles. Day 2, I ran, 6 miles. By day 4, I was up at 8 miles. Now, take that and apply it to your life in terms of your paycheck. Maybe your first paycheck, you just take $100, just $100, put it in the market. By the next month, $200. By the next month, $500. And like, you're just going to see, I had a paycheck come in and guess how much went into the market? All of it.
All of it.
So it's like, let's go, man. I'm on, I don't know what mile that is. Maybe it's a, guy ran right past the finish line. Now that's obviously not sustainable every single time to throw your entire, check into the stock market. But I have, based on how I built my savings and my whole strategy, everything, I could do that. And why am I doing that right now? Because the market's where it's at right now. I'm going to take full advantage of the opportunity. You know what? I'd rather cut back on all the things. I don't even buy really anything, but like, I'd rather just know there's no way I can buy anything this month, right? Because I bought my future self something that my present self will thank me for.
Yeah, dude, that's exactly how you need to look at it. And that's the hard part about investing and budgeting, frankly. It's hard to put yourself in the shoes of the version of yourself 20 years into the future. But that's really what it's all about. You're making decisions today for a future version of yourself. And it's like I said, it's not easy to see that far out into the future. Um,
Ryne,
but
why
it's
do you think that is?
that's a really good question. I think it's hard to make decisions for yourself that far in advance because that point in time just seems so far away. And if it seems so far away, this kind of ties back to the conversation we were having at the end of last conversation, at the end of the last episode, I mean. When it seems so far away, you feel like you have so much time. There's not as big of a sense of urgency. And if there's no sense of urgency, then there's not really a whole lot of pressure to take action on setting aside money for your future because you can afford to keep kicking the can down the road. There may be more to it than that, but I think that has a lot to do with it.
It's interesting because I literally an hour, 2 hours before we jumped on, I was actually thinking about this exact thing, and I'll just open up. My ex. I mean, we really went two very different paths, but when I broke up with her, I was she was becoming a yoga instructor and this whole thing, and I was helping her with that, and then I think I opened up to you a little bit about this. Help with the apartment and that. And then, it was kind of after we slowly started to really separate. I was just surprised because what I was seeing rather recently was like, man, she took a trip. And by the way, this is not to bash, like I all the love in the world for her. I want the best for her, like really. Like every day I pray her happiness, her love, wealth, everything. But I do have to look at this like objectively, and it's not just her, by the way. It's just like the closest example that I have right now. But so we broke up. I got the dog, I got all these responsibilities, and then she actually went to go on this like travel trip. And she doesn't have really the means for that, and that's what prompted my thinking for what we're talking about right now. And even on the run, sometimes I'm like, why is it, right, that like for me, it's so ingrained that I'm going to go ahead and pass up on all the fun and games right now for the later. And that sometimes can get me to, if I'm being honest, tear up. Because I think about how sweet it's going to be. How sweet it's going to be when everything that you're working for, you're really like going in on it now, and you're willing to just let that reward be later, come later. And that reward, I feel like it's like compounding. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and more beautiful and sweeter. And it's all about this journey. But it's crazy to me. And for the life of me, I'm just like, what? Like, what? Like I can't comprehend that lifestyle. And like, yeah, like prancing around the world and the pictures and this and like that. But like in my mind, I was like, I got all these responsibilities, and life is about responsibilities. life is yes, like you have fun in life on your journey, but like the real journey is growth. And growth comes with sacrifices. Like I just can't comprehend this other lifestyle, you know? Like I don't it really is a mindset. And I get what you're saying where it's like so far away, but I
So
just
you
can't
can
get it.
afford to avoid those responsibilities to your future self because it feels so far away. And to an extent that's true, but it's going to make it so much harder because, at some point like the chickens will come home to roost, and it will hit you like a ton of bricks that, oh shoot, I'm 40 years old now. I'm 45 years old now. Maybe I'm 50 years old now. I should probably start thinking about my retirement plan. And so the longer that you delay that, the more difficult it's going to be to play catch up. And we get questions like this all the time because we often talk about, we talk from the perspective a lot of times of people who have a lot of time on our side. But we also realize that a lot of people in our audience are a bit older and are maybe in their in their mid 40s or even early 50s, just getting started with this stuff, and they always ask, what about me? How do I do this? Like, how should I approach all of this with less time? And the truth is there's really no magic. There's really no shortcut still. Even no matter how old you are, there is still no shortcut to this stuff. And unfortunately, if you are older getting started, you have to be more aggressive with your contributions. You have to invest a lot more because you do have less time on your side. And for those of us, for not those of us, for people who are around our age or possibly even younger, and this stuff isn't even on their radar, the hope is that they don't realize that they need to do this stuff when they are in their 40s or 50s. Hopefully, they can have the strength to be willing to take on that responsibility for their future self, because it's inevitable. It's something that everyone has to do at some point in their life. And it feels good to be going down this path, even though it is difficult. And, I'd like to go to Cabo a few times a year. I'd like to do more staycations on this trip than I do, but it's worth it to me to not do that stuff and be a bit more responsible with my money today, because there will come a time where I'll get to enjoy the fruits of that labor, and there will be a time where I'll look back and realize that and I even feel it now, truth be told, it will all have been worth it, and it all is worth it. And the cool thing is, man, like, we're going to be able to enjoy this stuff. I mean, when we're in our 40s and 50s and even into our 60s, and I think about being that age, and I look at 50 years old and I look at 60 years old, and I think, gosh, you still, barring no like crazy accidents or anything going wrong, if everything goes as it should, 50 years old, 60 years old, it's older than I am today. It's twice my age, 60, but you still have so much time. I look at my parents who are 60. I look at my in-laws who are, my father-in-law, I think, is pretty close to being in his 60s. I don't think he's quite there yet. But, my in-laws are in their mid-50s. And I look at them, I think, you guys are still so young. You guys are still so young. And especially with my in-laws, I've seen them over these last 5 or 6 years. I've really seen them actually get younger, from being in their late 40s to now in their mid 50s and getting into their upper 50s. I've seen them reverse their aging, and what made the difference was the habits that they make, the way that they eat, the way that they exercise. That has made such a big difference in their life. And going back to just running again, man, we already are establishing these habits, these positive habits. And the thing about it is, once you get in the groove of running, once you get in the groove of exercising and having this sort of lifestyle, it takes a lot to really start living a different way. You really don't. You might take a couple days off. You might take a week off from exercising here and there, especially if you go on vacation. But this is who you are now, and having these habits now in the same way that it applies to investing as well. But having all of these habits now is going to make such a big difference when you do get to become that age. And I guess I don't really know what my point in saying all of this is now. I think I've kind of lost myself in it, as I usually do. But I guess I guess what I'm trying to get to is I feel so fortunate to think this way and to realize the power of starting early and letting those those regular habits compound over time. Because when we do get to a point where we're in our 40s and 50s and whatnot, and probably around that time, some of the people who are our age now will just be waking up to this stuff. Um, It'll just be nice to not have to worry about it then, I guess.
You use the term. You said the statement. Eventually the chickens will come home to roost, and then you also use the term. What did you say? Oh, it's going to hit you like a ton of bricks one day. Now, just to tell you how much I was actually on this thought earlier today, this whole thing we're talking about, I even reposted something that Jay Shetty had shared, and it was a quote that's definitely not his quote. I've seen it from a million different people, but the words are nonetheless inspiring. The longer you stay on the wrong train, the more expensive it is to get home.
Ugh.
And I had to repost that, man. It was right in line with what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking about her, my ex. I was thinking about everything, just like everything, all people in my life. Because I'm not going to single her out. It's like all people in my life who I'm looking at, and I'm like, objectively, where are your responsibilities and priorities? And I think that's really what we're talking about now. It comes down to responsibilities and priorities. And so what do you think is like the secret sauce to becoming responsible? Like that, as an investor, I would say that's like a top 10 rule, if you will, like top 10 commandments for an investor. Like, be responsible with your money. Because, by the way, you can also invest like a total imbecile, right? And like throw all your money YOLOing into some stock. That's not smart, right? So you got to be responsible with your money. But why is it, do you think, that some people are just more responsible from the get-go than others?
Mm. I don't know. It's hard to say, but speaking personally, the way I think about it is I know I'm going to have to cross these bridges eventually. So I might as well start now where the load will be lighter to carry so that by the time I do reach that point in my life where these things will be important, um, the hard part will be behind me. And, might as well start making progress today. Might as well not put it off today if I have the means. Or excuse me, I might as well not put it off until tomorrow if I have the means to start taking care of it today. Um, that's at least my mindset. But yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you were talking about responsibility, and I think that's what it is too. I just think I don't know. Maybe it's this generation. Maybe it's happened with every generation, but yeah, you do see a lot of people forgoing responsibility for these things and instead choosing to allocate money towards other things like trips or new cars or Louis Vuitton or stuff like that. And I'm sure that's always happened to an extent, but I don't know. I definitely notice it in a big way, and I think social media has definitely played a role in that. I don't know how much of a role, but at least some. And just the want to keep up in appearances and the facade that you're living a certain type of life. I think that there's pressure to portray those type of things, and that gets in the way of these things that we're talking about. Namely investing. You actually do see a lot of people. Social media actually has been a really big a force for good when it comes to health and fitness. And actually, I will say it's actually been a force for good with investing too, because I definitely think more accessibility and more information out there has only led people to start doing this younger and younger. Not everybody. It's kind of a slow expansion, and there's always going to be people who just don't want to do it because they'd rather spend their money on other things. But like I said, at some point the chickens are going to have to come home to roost, and I don't know. I'm just like, I might as well set myself up for success now than having to stress about it down the road. Financial stress has always been, finances have always been, even when I was a kid, I remember, I don't know why. I actually don't know where it comes from. But I remember even like as a kid in my teens, always wanting to make sure that like, just I had money to spend for myself. I ever since I was like 15 or 16, I was working, sometimes two jobs at a time, even in school. Like I always wanted to make sure I had enough money. And that was something that I never wanted to be stressed about in life, just because I know how stressful it can be. So, and I think that's another part of it too. Maybe when you get to the root of it, subconsciously, people are very stressed about their financial situation. But instead of actually dealing with it and doing something about it, it's easier to sweep that under the rug, and instead look to these distractions to keep you from having to actually deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't know. I'm just not that impressed by people. I gotta be honest. Like when I look at people, again, generally speaking, objectively speaking, I'm just typically not that impressed because it always just comes back to like people fetching, I don't have this, I don't have that, I want to do this, I don't know how to do that. And I guess like, again, personal experience from a young age, like I had to figure everything out. And so, and yeah, it probably is like social media going in there because now we have, like I want to say the wealthy fraudsters who are like renting a Lamborghini but saying it's theirs or whatever they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And you just feel like you're, even if it is someone taking a trip, perfect case in point, take the trip, 4 or 5 different countries, but you got no money in the bank. So, all right, like I don't know, like it just, to me, I'm looking around and that's why I'm not that impressed. I want more for people. I want people to do better. I want myself to do better. And I just hold myself to a really, really high standard because I'll tell you what, man, about 30 minutes before we jumped on to the deep end chat, I had a call come to my phone, and it was someone who had just graduated with an MBA, and he's like, "Oh, wanted to go over this, gratitude list with you. I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that." And I said, "But are you really? Because you sound like, you sound like absolute crap." I was like, I just don't want you to lie to me. Like, how about you just be real? And then he opened up and he was like, "I graduated with an MBA. I don't have a job yet. I'm looking at all my friends who graduated with the same MBA and they all have, their high tech jobs." And I said, "Dude, you're right where you need to be. You need to be humbled, my friend." I said, "I wouldn't give you a job even if I could right now." Again, I'm very direct and intense, but like, it's the reality, man. Because you're always going to be in the situation, personally, I think you need to be in. And if you're wise enough and slow enough and intentional enough, you'll catch the messaging in all these moments to be like, "Oh, that's the lesson." So what I'm telling this guy is like, "Dude, you didn't graduate with an MBA. You graduated with a bunch of letters on your resume. Who cares? Look at yourself. I go, you can't even withstand a little bit of pain." And like I think about that because a real MBA in my mind is meant to build a leader. I was like, I wouldn't want you leading me for anything. Look at you. And like by the end of the call, I told him to do a little exercise for me, and saw a message come in from him now. But I bring this up because this is just so important, I think, as an investor as well here. Like, you want to call yourself an investor? Where are you when the streets are red? It's
Yeah.
it's easy to be a investor when everything's green,
Mm-hmm.
but where are you when the streets are full of blood?
Yeah, man,
Are you
exactly.
investing? Where are your responsibilities? Are they elsewhere because all of a sudden the opportunities don't look so green? Are you even invested in the market, or are you vacationing even when you shouldn't be, right? Like, I'm just looking at all this. I feel like I'm always on one by the time I get onto the deep end chats, man. I'm like
I understand what you're saying though. And it's just like I was saying with running, like, you can call yourself a runner, but once you get to the 8, mile 9, mile 10, and it starts to wear on you, what are you going to do? Are you going to stop right then? Or are you going to push through those other 3 miles? It's easy to hit the pavement when you're just, when you're on mile 1 and it's nice and sunny and the music playing and stuff like that. But at some point, and this applies to no matter what you do and what you embark on, but at some point it's going to get difficult, and you have to be willing to persevere through those things, and that's what's going to make the difference over the long run. What you do today when it comes to your portfolio, how you handle this volatility today, will determine your success from here. If you let's I mean, some people I know have gone to cash and they've completely sold out of their stocks just from the turbulence we've seen so far in 2025. And the truth is, this is where times like this is where fortunes are made in the stock market. And if you jump ship at the first sign of weakness, that probably really has nothing to do with the fundamentals of the businesses you own. If you own individual companies, I'm sure a lot of them are still fine. Nothing's really changed. But if you run at the first sign of weakness, then it's really going to be hard to have a long term. It's going to be difficult to have success long term in the market, because things are always going to happen. There's always going to be changes in interest rates. There's potential tariffs. There's always going to be other macroeconomic or geopolitical events that happen that can have an impact on this stuff, and you have to be willing to. But actually, let me take a step back. You have to have the discipline to not read too much into those things and instead just focus on the fundamentals of the companies that you own, because that's what's going to make the difference over the long haul. And so we were kind of talking about this last week, but in moments like this, you have to look at what you own. And it's a good time to revisit your holdings too, just to make sure that things are right, that the fundamentals are as strong as you thought they were when times were good. And if that's the case, then like I said, this is where fortunes can be made. Just buy the dip, keep taking advantage of these opportunities, especially when it comes to the very high quality companies like the Googles or whatnot, because opportunities like this are pretty few and far between, and it's tough to go through it in the moment. I understand, but you have to look at the bigger picture here.
The bigger picture. I mean, that's the most important thing. I think that, you know, someone, again, are you an investor if you back out of the stock market right now? Just because there's some quakes and shakes out there and, your nerves are running high. Yeah, I'll tell you, if your strategy is to try to time the market, which I wouldn't recommend, but if your strategy is exactly that, okay, and you want to kind of go at it with the value investor type of angle where you're going to sell high and try to buy back in low, and maybe that is a part of the strategy. I don't know. But if you're someone out there who's just freaking out and you pull your money because you're freaking out, don't call yourself an investor. Like, I like what you said. It's like, don't call yourself a runner if, like, you just stop. Like, my second day, by the way, running, it was day 2. Day 1 was phenomenal because it was like, I'm right out of the chute, baby. I'm warm. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Day 2, and I even, this is why I started videoing it. I actually, it's selfishly for me. Every video I'm putting up on Instagram and every run and everything I'm doing is just for me. So I can look back at it later and it's not on my phone space. So it's very selfish, but it is out there. On day 2, I woke up and I walked out of this door over here, and I got windows in front of me and to the right of me here. And it was just, I look out the windows and it's pouring rain. And I was like, no, day 2. I thought maybe on like day 9 or like day 12. I don't know. Later down the road, I'd be able to handle the rain. And I go, what do I do? Do I wait it out maybe until 6 or 6:30, maybe 7? But I don't have time. If I wait it out, I don't have the time. I'm not going to be able to run. So I go, again, it was like, get your flipping shoes on, lace up, and go run in the rain. And that's what I did, man. I went to run in the rain. I ran a 6 miles in the rain. And that's what forges a runner. Runners run. Writers write. investors invest. And we do this whether the market is up or down or anything in between. And a writer or a runner does the writing and the running, whether they feel good or they feel bad, or they feel hungry or they feel sad, or whatever it is.
And that is the responsibility. Those are the responsibilities that you've taken upon yourself when you've committed to becoming those things.
Dude, I think we are deep in the deep end right now, man.
Yeah, I get pretty fired up too. You were talking about the trip takers and that whole thing. We were talking about that, and I get pretty fired up about that stuff as well because it's just so prevalent. You see it all the time. It's so common to see people avoiding responsibilities that they should be, taking on at this point in their life. But and I think the frustrating part of it is they know they should do it. They're going to have to do it at some point. Everyone knows this stuff is important. Same thing with like exercising. A lot of people know it's important. Not everyone does it, but they know they should. It's frustrating when people know that but still don't take action on it. And you really can't force someone to do those things either. Like they have to want it to make that change for themselves, and they'll do it whenever they feel ready. And whatever that journey looks like to bring them to that point is different for everyone. But you really can't force people to do it. You can't talk them into doing that. And that was one of the motivations for starting my channel as well. I remember is like knowing this and how much of an impact this has already had on me, in the short amount of time I've been doing this. Hopefully, like putting this stuff out there and talking about it more, I can lead by example, because that's really the only thing I can control. That's really the only thing I can do is lead by example. I can't talk someone into investing. Maybe at first they'll put a few bucks in, but not to the point where they'll sustain it on their own. You can't force people into that stuff. And so all we can do is lead by example. And I think that's also like partly what documenting this running thing is too. Like, it has an impact on people. It gets people into it whether you know it or not. And the same is true with investing. And all you can do is just lead by example, I guess.
That's exactly right. And you know what? Like I know you're more of I'm going to say like you're not so much aligned with like kicking people out of your life who don't, fit the mold, so to speak. And I don't believe in kicking people out of your life, but I do believe in distancing yourself from individuals who just aren't necessarily, where they should be if they're going to be in your circle. And I think that like, again, it's not to be mean and like, oh, you're no longer welcome in my life. It's just like, hey, I'm going to back up a little bit from you because it's that negative energy. I don't even want a lick of it. I don't want a taste of it. I don't want your irresponsibility. I don't want any of that attitude or energy entering my sphere. And I get a lot of calls, man, throughout the day. I work with a lot of different folks. Whether it's in the business front or whether it's, addictions and all this stuff. So my phone lines are open and I'm always, meeting with a lot of people. But I'll say this. I have a circle and then I have my inner circle. And that inner circle, if you're in that inner circle, you are locked up in terms of like what you're doing in life, your drive and your focus. There we go. He knows what's up. The people who are in my inner circle are focused and they're driven. Like these are the folks that like I can just lean on. But you know what? If I even try to lean on them, they're like, get the heck off me. Like stand back up. I'm like, oh, like, and I think that's also necessary. For me at least. That's how I, enjoy growth is like in those moments when life gets tight, you can fall over, you can lean on someone, or you could just take a moment to pause and literally say, I know this is hard. I know this sucks, but this is a part of the suck. and eventually the suck ends. And so for me, when I get in a pinch and life gets really hard, yeah, I'll break down by myself, with myself. And then after that breaking point, I do go to, I'll call a trusted individual in that inner circle. And then they're like, dude, but you're you, man. Keep going. I'm like, yeah, that's right. Keep going. And I think this is also just so important because who's in your inner circle? Who are you surrounding yourself with? When it comes to periods like right now in the stock market, who are you listening to? Are you listening to the Jim Cramers of the world who sell all your positions, the world's ending? Clicks a button and like the cow moves. Like it's all, a bunch of baloney. And you could choose to listen to someone like that or I won't get specific, but certain YouTubers who are like, the whole market is crashing. It's over forever. Or you can listen to people that have been very steady, on their investment journey, and you just keep watching their portfolios go up. And whether the market is green or the market is red, they're saying the same balanced approach to investing is the best approach. Who's in your circle?
I love it, man. I mean, when you get to the root of it, no matter what it is, there's ebbs and flows to everything, and you have to be able to take the good with the bad and not get too freaked out either way. Certainly, the case is with the market, because if things are going up, and it's like it's so easy to get excited when it seems like stocks just keep going up, but you also in the back of your mind got to know at some point, like it's not gonna last forever. Things could just as easily head back down. Um, and so it's good to try and stay level-headed through all of it, especially when it comes to the stock market. And if it does get to be too much, just tune out. Just don't pay attention to it. And remember, bigger picture here, long term, it's going to be fine. If you're sick of seeing the red, just quit looking. If you don't want to see it, don't look at it. Go on a run, go on a jog, read a book. Just look for something else to do instead of reading headlines and watching all these YouTube videos talking about how the market is melting. And I'm guilty of that too. I just put a video out about that. But you don't always need to consume it. You don't always need to absorb it. You'll be just fine without it. So
with that
anyway.
said, go watch Ryan's next video. It is going live shortly.
Yeah.
No, look, man, I just can't get myself to produce, anything of that sort because it's just not even my nature. Like I like what you said. Just go run, go do something else. Like if you're doing the right thing, and now you hear like some voices in the background saying like, "Oh, the world's ending," or "Do this," but you're doing the right thing. Tune it all out, and then focus on the priorities, your responsibilities. Because at the end of the day, the only person, and I think we may have spoken about this before, but like, even Ryne, if you were selling out of all of your positions right now, no one knows what you're doing tomorrow. You might sell out all of your positions today, and by tomorrow, buy back in and not make a video on it. And so now no one knows that you either bought or sold or whatever, and they're just following your initial move. They don't know that you're 30 steps ahead of them. So the other thing is, like, as an investor and as someone, just a player in life, like, get your head on the swivel. Know your information for you. Review the stocks in your portfolio for you. Be able to sit in the eye of the storm called, volatility of the market or life itself for you. What are your responsibilities? What are your priorities? What are your goals? And if you roll like that, okay, my neighbor who's not running the marathon doesn't need to wake up early and doesn't live the same life as me. We have very different goals. I don't want his life at all. And I don't think I don't know if he wants mine or not. I would assume not, right? Because he's doing what he's doing and I'm doing what I'm doing. And I just think that's important too. It's like when you look around, who's living the life that you want? And are they Are they really living that life too? That's the other question we were talking about, was like social media, or is it like a big facade? So you got to really figure out, you got to be careful with social media in that respect, because I feel like you can just come across people and the whole thing is like a big fraud. But if you really know someone genuinely and the lifestyle that they're living and that's what you're after, it's always worth the humility of saying, like, how did you get there? Here's what my life looks like right now. What tweaks would you make? Those are a lot of the calls that I get sometimes, man. Like, here's my schedule. Here's what I'm doing. Here's where I want to go. And I'm like, oh, you want to do X, Y, and Z? Then why are you doing A, B, and C? They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, someone who wants to do X, Y, and Z wouldn't be doing A, B, and C. So it's like, just get another pair of eyes. You know, it's the same thing with your portfolio. If you really want to have a fun time, you know, have someone critique your portfolio. I know, Ryne, you do the portfolio critique. Send it over to Ryne. You know,
Yeah.
he'll just bust it up in front of thousands of people for you. You know, talk about real humility.
I'm pretty nice. People are actually mad at me in the comments because I'm not like brutal enough in these reviews, but I just, you know, I am honest to the extent that honest and direct enough to the extent that I need to be. I'm not going to be unnecessarily rude or like confrontational or like talk down on people's decisions. I just don't see the good or the point in doing any of that. But I'll be honest. I'll give you my honest thoughts. I'm not going to be a jerk about it though. So that's where I stand with all of that.
I feel like if someone sent me their portfolio, I mean, that's more of my persona. I'm more of like just a, you know, oh, your MBA means nothing, you know, like you can't even stand a moment in the volatility of life, you know, get out. I wouldn't want you to lead me, you know, but I didn't even say it. Like I say it with all the love in the world, you know, like,
Yeah.
I just believe like this is also an interesting thought. You know, what's forged me today is being pressed to no end in life. And so what I think sometimes is interesting is how many, like, you know, the guy who called me earlier today, he was like, you know, I heard from this one guy that I'm working with that I should call you, you know, and I'm like, well, you know, if you're working with that guy, you should talk to that guy. Why is that guy telling you to call me? You know, you know, but the reason is that guy didn't have the answers that this gentleman who called me was looking for. So I, with honor and pleasure, took that call. But I feel like when people call me and get me involved in their life in some way, shape, or form, they know what to expect. They know I'm not going to be easy on them, and I'm going to give them what they absolutely need to hear, but certainly do not want to hear. And I was laughing to myself after that call because I go, you know, I've been pressed to no end throughout my entire life, and it's built me into this person that I am today. And it's been hard. And the reason why, even on my runs, I think about this. Why don't I have the, you know, just give up attitude? You know, like it was like, no, like mile 11, you know, like here we go. And with mental ease, no one's willing to do the stuff I'm doing. No one's willing to do it. And so why I get these calls sometimes, or like, you know, is because people want to be able to do it, but they haven't lost enough yet. They haven't really experienced the pain of life yet. And I've just experienced too much pain to the point where, like, these little things in life, the market, $25,000 loss right now. Dude, I was looking at your portfolio because you posted on Instagram. And I was like, damn, dude, you're doing well, man. Like right now, considerably. And I was like, that's great. And I looked at mine and I was like, oh, $25,000 down. Let's go. Right? Like put more in. So what is a $25,000 loss to me right now? Yeah. I'll make it back.
You'll make
Like
it
that,
back.
you know,
and
that's my thinking. It's like, all right. But you know what? Risk big, win big. You know? Oh, I got 30 days to train for the marathon. All in.
Well, but check it out. And this, I'm actually glad that you said risk, because that's part of this too. I think that's part of where this type of reaction comes from so many investors who are feeling that, getting the nerves right now. I think that that's a lot to do with it. It's a understanding between what risk is and what volatility is. You look at something like Google, which has been
Mm.
volatile, no doubt about it. But is it risky? Is it really riskier today to invest in Google than it was 3 months ago? And why don't we just take a moment and break down both of these? Volatility often gets confused as being risk. They're often used interchangeably, but the truth is volatility is simply just a measure of how aggressively and how fast a stock share price changes and by how much. And that's measured by the beta, which is, if the beta is at 1, that means it has the same amount of volatility as like the S&P 500 or as the market as a whole. If a stock has a beta less than 1, it means that it's less volatile, meaning the share price is less swingy than what you might expect with the market. And the opposite is true if the beta is above 1. That's just talking about volatility, but that really has nothing to do with risk. When we're talking about risk, we're talking about like the permanent loss of money in that investment. And what results in a permanent loss is or are underlying fundamental issues with the company itself. If the company is at risk, if the company is going bankrupt, that's risk. That's not volatility. If the company, it's been exposed that there's massive fraud within the company, it's just this big pyramid scheme, that's pretty risky, and there's a great chance you're not going to make your money back from that. So, like I said, I think that there's a big misconception between what risk is and what volatility is. And I think just by understanding that simple difference, that can really save you a lot of trouble and can really save your nerves when you see such crazy movements in share price. So
I think that was the golden nugget of this entire chat. What you just
well, thank you.
created a distinction for. I really do. I like the moment you started, like, I already knew where you were going with it, and I was like, whoa.
Well, dude, you set me up for the assist right there.
Man, like, I wouldn't change anything you just shared. That was powerful. Like, and I knew where you were going, and I'm in my head, I'm like, this is still powerful. I know exactly where he's going, and it's becoming more powerful. And it's so powerful that just to double down on that, know the difference between actual risk and just simple volatility. Because when my portfolio is down $25,000, I'm still not seeing it as risk. I just see it as a volatile day. And this happens in the market every day in some sector or another, for some stock or another. What does the company's fundamentals look like? And what are we talking about over a 10-year period of time? And I loved how you brought in Google and you go, is Google any more risky right now than it was 3 months ago? No, it's the same company. Matter of fact, they're probably better off today than they were 3 months ago with their new chips coming out. Like it's crazy where like just the few months going by. And so all this panic selling, it's not risk, it's stupidity that's happening out there. And so I like now what's coming to mind is I think it was Warren Buffett who just shared that the stock market is a vehicle between transferring wealth from those who are impatient to those who are patient. And that's really all this is. Like, okay, we're down, at least my portfolio, down $25,000. If I don't sell anything, there's no real loss that just occurred. Go back to Wolf of Wall Street, right? It's a, fairy dust. It's a woozy, it's a wazy, like that's what we're talking about. There's no paper loss right now. I didn't lose anything. It's just something in my app that says, down 25,000 until I actualize that. But again, I'm going to actualize that in decades from now when it's a gain based on how everything looks right now. Who knows? Maybe Google, will face off a competitor. Schmoogle will come out and like be a crazy company and, just overtake Google. But for right now, Google's the company. And so that's so, mind-blowing stuff you just shared, man. And I want to thank you for sharing that.
Oh, well, thank you for setting me up for that, man. I mean, that's the cool thing about these chats, that none of this is planned. It just kind of goes where it goes. And it's good for us too to be able to throw these things out in real time and have these conversations. I think that hopefully you guys listening get a lot of value out of it. I think you do, just based on how things have progressed on the channel so far, but I think we get just as much out of it as you guys do listening. Maybe more selfishly.
I'd say more. I mean, I always go after these videos are posted. I go down to the comments and I read through what's happening, people's thoughts. If you've enjoyed this episode, and to that end, I do want to throw in now. What do you guys want more of from Ryne and I? Like, what can we do for you? That's really what I want to ask. Do you want certain questions answered? Do you want guests on the show? Like, I want to open this up to the entire community and be like, how can Ryne and I better help you and your investment journey? Like, do you want us to be reaching out for, affiliate type of stuff where we can try to get you guys better deals on things? Like, you tell us what you want, and Ryne and I will try to make it happen. Because I know the whole goal of this chat and both of our channels was to do exactly that. And every video I watch, man, I'm so taken back and really just, I mean, I'm humbled, I'm grateful, I'm honored at the comments that I read and how much you guys are taking away. It is selfish. So I feel like Ryne and I need to give back more.
Yeah, I agree. Let us know in the comments, guys. And as far as guests go, we've talked about this from the start. Like at some point, we'll do that, whether it's like one a month or every now and again. We'd like to start bringing some people into the deep end with us and just have these free flowing conversations, these candid conversations with people like Kai or Sai or whoever else you guys would find interesting. So let us know in the comments who you'd like to see and who you think would be good in this type of loosey-goosey format. I'd be curious to know who you guys come up with, and we'll try and make it happen.
And with that, man, should we close out?
Yeah, man. Take us to the end zone.
Woo! It's been a week. It's been a good week. I've been stretching every day. I don't even feel, like I can't keep going. And, $25,000 down, and I don't even feel like I can't keep going, baby. So that's all I got to say is Ryne and I back at it here in the deep end. And we'll be back next week. I really feel like we're just getting started. Like this was the warm-up. And again, I also want to say, if you guys haven't already subscribed, now is the time to subscribe. Because I can tell you, Ryne and I are now more fired up than ever crossing this finish line. This is like the first finish line of many to come. And we want to take this thing to the moon. We want to grow this community. Just keep giving back to you guys and making sure that we are literally all hitting our financial goals together. Another big shout out to everybody out there, and big thank you for subscribing and following the journey with us so far. Till the next go around here of the deep end, we will catch you all in the next one.